Good morning, Grizzlies. All right, so yesterday we read the chapter where we found out a little bit more as far as Moose trying to figure out if Natalie gets visitors or not. And then it ended up where Officer Trixel, Darby Trixel, sort of confronted Moose about Natalie and how they need to have a clean slate. He has a brother who has some sort of a mental incapacity, and, he just basically never sees him and thinks Moose should do the same. Moose obviously feels differently. So, chapter 29, a sweet spot for Moose. Monday, September 9th, and Tuesday, September 10th, 1935. When my mom gets back, she stays with Natalie. The two of them hole up in Nat's room. Nat lying on the bed, her arms tucked under her as if she's flown apart and she's bringing herself together again. Fits exhaust Natalie. They exhaust my mom, too. Sometimes it seems like there's still an umbilical cord between them. After I get home from school the next day, I head for the canteen with Annie, Jimmy, and Teresa. Jimmy doesn't say much. He helped me with Natalie when she was having her fit, but he still feels bad about not keeping his eyes on her the night Hoover was here. He goes down to check his flies, which now occupy 2 barrels under the dock. But he doesn't invite me down there, not anymore. While Jimmy's gone, Teresa and Annie and I help Bea unpack boxes. There really isn't that much to do. Late in the afternoon, Mrs. Madaman, Mrs. Cocconi, Annie's mom, Bea, and Janet Trixel come sweeping into the canteen, practically clearing out the baking aisle. Even Mrs. Cocconi, who never buys from the canteen because she thinks the prices are too high, gets butter and eggs. "What's going on, Mom?" Jimmy asks. "Bea's closing up early so we can get the baking done." "Why's everybody baking?" Teresa asks. "Never you mind. You kids just run along." She waggles her fingers towards the door. "Outside with all of you." Janet turns the wooden sign to closed. She gives Teresa a smug little smile. "We're going up to Mrs. Cocconi's apartment because little pitchers have big ears," Janet whispers to Teresa. "What's that supposed to mean?" Teresa asks me. "It means they don't want us to hear what they're going to say. But that's what secret passages are for, Teresa," I tell her. Teresa smiles as big as a Halloween pumpkin. There's a skip to her step as she, Annie, Jimmy, and I head for Chinatown. Jimmy works his screwdriver on the hinge and we scramble inside. "Shh," he orders. "We know they're up there." "Icky," Teresa whispers, whacking a cobweb out of her face. "Quiet or you can't come," Jimmy warns. By the time we get settled in at the best eavesdropping spot, the women are already in Mrs. Cocconi's living room. "Now you mustn't talk that way. She's gonna pull through," Annie's mom says. "Janet, you stay in the bedroom like I told you. Play with your dollies, all right?" Bea tells Janet. "I know a death rattle when I hear it. That woman is not long for this world," Bea sighs. "I wish I could say I didn't see this coming. I mean, the doctor told her not to have any more." "Oh, now, Bea, these things happen," Mrs. Manaman tells her. "Well, you're not going to tell me he didn't want a boy more than life itself," Bea again. "No guarantees it's going to be a boy," Mrs. Cocconi offers. "Try telling the warden that," Bea says. "Got him signed up for military school and the sailing club already." "That's up to God, not the warden," Annie's mom insists. "I'll tell you what's up to us," Mrs. Madaman declares. "Piper. I'll be the first to tell you she's not my favorite child. But right now she's all alone in that big house with her mama rushed off to the hospital, sick enough to—" She takes a deep breath. "It's not right. Somebody has to go up there with her." "I'll go," Mrs. Cocconi offers. "I can cook in the warden's kitchen same as my own." "Now, let's hold our horses here, girls, and use our noggins. Who's the closest friend Piper's got?" Bea asks. "Moose," Mrs. Madaman replies. "Ain't that the truth?" Bea answers. "Those two and their googly eyes? Where is he?" "We sent them out to play. Get them out of her hair," Annie's mom replies. "That boy, my goodness. If there's a hand that needs a holdin', he's the one for the job. I'll be darned if he didn't get me a rose one day when I was feeling down. Still can't figure that one out," Bea says. "He's a nice boy, that's what. My Annie thinks the world of him," Mrs. Bomini says. "Got a sweet spot for Moose is what your Annie has," Bea answers. Annie's mom sighs. "I'm afraid so, but enough of that now, girls. We've got our work cut out for us." "Annie," Teresa whispers, "you have a crush on Moose?" But Annie has weaseled past Jimmy. She's crawling like a spider down the passage to the door that opens with a squeal and closes with a crump. We can hear her distant footsteps running up the cement stairway that leads out of Chinatown. My cheeks get hot with the thought that Annie has a crush on me. I don't like her in that way. I mean, Annie? She's a box with feet, but it's kind of nice to think she likes me, so long as it doesn't affect her pitching, that is. But then I hear my name again, and I can't think about Annie because I want to listen to what the ladies at Mrs. Cacconi's are saying about me. Well, I'm going to go find Moose and send him up there. We can't leave that child scared out of her wits and all alone. Poor little thing, Mrs. Madaman says. You find Moose, we'll get the baking going. Then we'll figure out who gets to visit poor June, Bee commands. Get out of here, Moose, fast as you can, Jimmy whispers. He moves out of the way and I crawl back to the door and jump out with Teresa on my tail. I take the Chinatown stairs 2 at a time and run into Mrs. Madaman as she heads out to the parade grounds. There you are, Moose, Mrs. Madaman says as Teresa catches up. And Teresa, you may as well hear this too. Teresa grabs her mom's hands and holds it tight. Mrs. Williams is sick. They took her to St. Luke's Hospital in the city. She's very sick. She may not what? Teresa asks. Now, never you mind, Mrs. Madaman tells her. What about the baby? I ask. Mrs. Madaman heaves a big breath. Don't know yet about the baby. Her voice breaks. I knew it, Teresa whispers. You knew what? Mrs. Madaman strokes Teresa's tumble of black curls. She's not even going to get in trouble now, Teresa insists. Who isn't? Piper. Teresa, Mrs. Madaman snaps. That poor girl may lose her mommy. You're old enough to know what that means. Whether or not she should have been bawled out is beside the point. No, it's not, Teresa whispers. Shame on you. Mrs. Madaman's jaw sets. Her dark eyes fire up. You wipe that look off your face, young lady, and march back home and wash your mouth out with soap. Teresa's steps are heavy as she heads for home. Mrs. Madaman sighs. She has a big heart for every other creature on God's green earth, but she can't find it in herself to be kind to Piper. Now, Moose. She focuses her attention back on me. I know your mom's got her hands full with Natalie, so I'm going to step up to the plate. You get yourself up to the warden's house, young man. Piper needs a friend. Oh boy, does she ever. And if you can't forgive her, well, shame on you too. There isn't a friend in the world won't disappoint you one day. You going to hold a grudge? You'll have a mighty lonely life. I could get Annie. Wouldn't this be a better girl job? I suggest. Mrs. Madaman looks at me intently. Come on now, Moose. I think we both know Piper would rather see you. My eyes don't meet Mrs. Madaman's. I hate to admit she's right. What do you say to someone whose mother is that sick? I ask. Mrs. Madaman seals her lips up tight and nods her head. It's not what you say, Moose. Not one word any of us says is going to help that poor child right now. But you go up there and you stay with her. That's what she'll remember, that we loved her enough to go through this with her. We're a family here in Alcatraz, and that's what families do. Now you go on. Yes, ma'am, I say. And Moose, you want to bring her back down to our place? You go right ahead. She's welcome. You bet she is.